Tommy from Docket Drafter here, and today I'm going to show you guys how you can use Claude Code to cite check a brief without using Westlaw or LexisNexis. The only thing that's required here is a Claude subscription. You do not need a specialized legal AI tool like Harvey Legora to get this to work. It is also going to require installing a free CourtListener workflow that we built at Docket Drafter. I'm going to include a link to my email in the description of this video where you can shoot me an email if you want help installing it. I'd be happy to get you set up with it for free. With that out of the way, let's actually jump into the case that we'll be looking at. I went to the Florida Supreme Court website and looked through some recent opinions. I wanted to find a civil case, and I found this opinion here. We can see here that it was published on December 11th, 2025. And of course, this is not a brief that was filed by one of the attorneys. This is the opinion of the court. So what I actually did was grab the docket number, which we can see here is SC 2024-1256. And I went into the Florida Appellate Court docketing website and I pasted that number in. And I was able to find the actual brief filed by the petitioner, which we have over here. And we're going to specifically look at the table of citations, and we're going to be focusing on the cases here. So imagine that you were an attorney writing this brief, and you wanted to go in and validate that every single one of these citations was actually valid. We're not going to be looking at statutes, regulations, or other authorities. We're going to be only focused on case law in this video. Our database of choice is going to be CourtListener. This is 100% free. It's really awesome. I don't think the coverage is quite as good as Westlaw or Lexis, but it is very good, especially for state Supreme Courts, state appellate courts, and anything in federal court. Before we start jumping in with Claude, we're going to pretend to do this manually using the CourtListener UI because I think that's going to make it a lot easier to understand what Claude is going to do on our behalf. CourtListener's got a few different types of searches. If you're looking for opinions, you're going to be looking at case law. And I'm in the advanced case law search here, which is generally what I'd recommend. It can be a bit overwhelming, but a lot of the stuff should look familiar. Your keywords and names and anything like that are going to go in the main search bar, but you've also got a way to select a jurisdiction. By default, everything is going to be enabled. So we've got every federal appellate and of course the Supreme Court. We've got every federal district court. They've also got bankruptcy courts, which is not going to be relevant for what we're looking at here. And then finally, we got the state courts. So if I was looking for just Florida Supreme Court opinions that were published in 2026, I would go ahead and clear every single one of these, which is going to clear every tab, not just the state tab there. And then I would look over into the options for state court, and I'm going to select only the Supreme Court of Florida. Now, of course, in order to use these checkboxes well, you're going to have a decent understanding of the court hierarchy of whatever state you're looking at. The good news is Claude or ChatGPT can really help you understand what that looks like. Either way, we're going to select Supreme Court of Florida. We're going to hit apply. And then in the filed after, I'm going to go ahead and select January 1st, 2026. And I'm going to leave the filed before blank. So this is anything that was filed in January 1st, 2026 or later. Then I'm going to hit search. You can see here we've got about 52 opinions that seem to have been published by the Florida Supreme Court. And in CourtListener, if you click on an opinion, you can see it. Sometimes the formatting isn't that great, but everything that you were to see in a PDF like this would also appear in CourtListener. And in fact, let's actually pull up this exact case. So again, that's the SC 2024-1256. I actually think this one is in December, so we're going to pull this guy back here. And then let's go put the file before as January 1st. And again, this is just constraining it. I could have also searched by the case title, but I'm kind of lazy. So let's go ahead and search this. And if we look here, here is the case. It is the Bank 1 case, December 11th, 2025. And again, we see that exact case number here. That's the exact same opinion that we saw from the actual Florida Supreme Court website. It is just in a format that's nice for CourtListener rather than being a PDF. So that's all well and good, but if we want to cite check this brief, we basically have to go in and ensure that every single one of these cases in the table of citations exists. And then if we really want to be thorough, we'd make sure that the brief itself is accurately representing the holding of the case. So it's not just that the case exists and is cited properly, but that it actually makes sense in the context of this brief. And if we want to take a step further, we would make sure that the case was actually still good law. So that would be kind of like shepherdizing in Westlaw. Luckily with CourtListener, one thing you can do is search by citation. So if we look down here, we've got the official citation format attached to the table of citations. I went ahead and copied that. Now, if we're back into CourtListener and click on search case law, you can paste what I just copied from the brief. You can click on search and it's going to take a second, and you're going to notice that CourtListener can actually resolve the citation. And so it says, hey, it looks like you're looking for Arnold Matheny PA versus First American Holding from 2008. And if we look over again at the brief, that looks like exactly the case we're looking for. So we can go back to CourtListener, click on this guy, and now we've got the full opinion. And I'm pretty confident that this case actually exists. Of course, if you wanted to make sure that it was applied properly, or rather referenced properly in this brief, you'd go ahead and read this, figure out what the holding was, what the actual meaning of this case is, and then make sure that the author cited it properly in the context of the brief that they're creating. So if we wanted to actually cite check this manually using CourtListener, we would basically go one by one and copy the official citation from the table of citations, just like this. We would paste that into CourtListener, into the search bar. We would click search. We would make sure that the opinion existed and actually resolved to something. If it didn't, we would have to find it in another place, but CourtListener does have good coverage. And then we'd probably have some sort of spreadsheet or something like that to keep track of everything we've looked at. We want to have Claude do all of this for us. Now, luckily, CourtListener has what's called an API, or Application Programming Interface. Basically, it is a way for a program to access CourtListener, kind of like how you and I are clicking around on the UI. And the reason this is useful is that we at Docket Drafter developed a skill that you can use in your Claude that basically teaches Claude how to access this API and query everything just like we were doing here. So in order to make this work, you would have to create an API token, and this would also require creating an account on CourtListener. Again, send me an email that I'll link in the description, and I'd be happy to walk you through this. But once you have all that, your Claude will basically understand how to talk to CourtListener completely natively. Okay, so I've opened up Claude Code, I've loaded the CourtListener skill, and the folder that we're going to be working with in Claude Code has both the brief written by the attorney and the Supreme Court opinion itself. And the first thing I'm going to have Claude do is just pull out a list of all the case citations so I can confirm that it saw everything. So I'm going to go over to Claude and I'm just going to tell it, give me a list of all the citations. Claude is going to do its thing. Again, I didn't actually mention the specific PDF. I just told it about a brief, and it's going to be able to figure that out because it can read the files just like you or me. And it looks like it actually found a few cases that were cited in the body of the brief that did not appear in the table of citations. Claude is very, very good at finding stuff like this. And it was also even able to find a typo in one of the citations in the Knowles opinion. Okay, so we've got the list. Let's have Claude check citation number 1 here, and I'm going to tell it to do that right now. So all I'm telling it is confirm that citation 1 exists and use CourtListener. And again, I'm just using 1 here because that's how Claude labeled it. If you were to say Arnold, it would probably figure it out. Now it's going to ask me permission to run some code. And again, this is using the CourtListener API. It doesn't actually matter if you know how to use the API or not because we're able to teach Claude to use it on our behalf. And it is smart enough to use the reporter site, which again is going to be a lot more precise. And that's this thing right here, the 982so.2d blah, blah, blah. Okay, got it. And Claude was able to find the actual opinion and give us the link. So let's click on that. And again, we're back on CourtListener. Claude is able to see it just like you or I. So citation 1 exists, and now the next step might be to actually have Claude read the opinion and confirm that it was applied correctly. So let's go ahead and do that. So I just told Claude to read the opinion and confirm that it was used correctly. And again, it's asking me to run some commands so it can pull out the text from the actual opinion. Now Claude has actually confirmed that the opinion was used properly in this brief. And the reason that we can trust this, or at least it's a lot easier to trust it than just going into Claude on the web and asking it to search the internet on our behalf, is that because Claude is connected to CourtListener, we know for a fact that it downloaded the opinion. And so we have the full opinion text on our desktop for Claude available to see. And in fact, I'm even going to have Claude show us where the opinion is so you and I can look at it as just a file on the computer. And then if we go over back into Finder, we're going to notice that it created this CourtListener folder, and then it created a subfolder for the opinion. And if we click on that, we've got a few different versions of it. We're going to pull up the HTML because that's going to open in the browser. And here we are. We've got the actual opinion. It is just a file on our computer. Claude knows where it is. If Claude's able to read this, then we can be pretty confident that it's able to figure out what it means because we solved the hard part of giving it access to the text. Okay, great. So now that we confirmed that the first opinion exists and was apparently used properly, the next thing I'm going to have Claude do is just confirm that all of the remaining opinions exist. I'm going to break it up into batches because it's a lot faster for Claude to just confirm everything exists, and then it'll be able to flag any gaps it finds, and maybe that's going to require us going into Google Scholar or some other source. And then only after we know everything exists, then in a separate session, we can have Claude actually confirm that the opinions are used properly. So let's start with this. Okay, so I'm just telling Claude to confirm that the rest of the opinions exist, and I'm telling it again, don't actually read them. We're going to confirm that they were used properly in a separate session, and I also want it to just output a table. So again, this is kind of like if you had a manual spreadsheet, and this table is not only going to include if it exists, I'm going to force it to give me a link back to CourtListener so I can verify it as well very easily. This is going to take a second, but basically it's running some custom code for us, which is really convenient here because we have API access. This might take a minute or two. It's going to depend on how good of API access you have to CourtListener, how good of internet you have. It's not necessarily Claude's fault if this is a little slow, but hopefully it won't take more than a minute or two. Now, it's not quite done, but if we go into the CourtListener folder, it looks like Claude created another cases subfolder, which actually isn't exactly what I wanted. I kind of wanted just to dump everything here. But if we open this guy up, we're going to see that it's starting to find a lot of the opinions, which is a good sign. Okay, and CourtListener, again, is not perfect. It looks like Claude was having some trouble with some of the court reporter citations. And so it's actually falling back to search by party. And it might not find everything. That's totally okay. We can always validate manually the ones that it can't find. Okay, so it was able to find a few more just by searching for party name rather than using the citation. It looks like it's still struggling to find 3. It is going to try to do its best to look in CourtListener. You could always stop it here and go and find them yourself, but we'll see what Claude can do. Maybe it'll find them. And again, we can see that there are a lot more folders in this cases folder too. Okay, so now it's giving me the results here. It looks like we found 14 of the 17, which is really awesome. Okay, so here's the table of the 14 that it found. And again, we've got CourtListener links on the right column here. So this one, Beal Bank, if we click on link here, we're going to get the exact opinion. If we click on Dadeland Depot, that is going to take us to Dadeland Depot. And you guys get the idea. All these are going to be correct. This is because the API is very powerful. And then down here, it's telling us specifically like, hey, these are 3 that I was not able to actually validate. So what you could do here is copy the case and then go into something like Google Scholar and then select case law and then dump in the case name here. And then it looks like that Google Scholar does have it. And so what you could actually do is just copy and paste this exact opinion into Claude. And now Claude will actually be able to see it and it'll know that it's legit. Claude also still flagged those 2 cases in the body of the brief that didn't appear in the table of citations. Obviously, it's up to you what you want to do there. I'd probably recommend having Claude check those as well and then probably add them to the table of citations so that everything links up. But instead of focusing on those 3 opinions that we don't have, let's go ahead and have Claude confirm that the rest of these opinions were actually used properly in the brief. Now, there are 14 of these here. I'm going to have Claude check all of them in one session. In general, though, if you want Claude to be as accurate as possible, you want to make sure that you're having it check as few opinions in a session as possible. And this is all about context usage. If in a single session, you're just saying, hey, read the brief that the lawyer wrote and then read the Beal Bank case and confirm that it was applied properly in the brief, that is not that hard for Claude and it doesn't take up that much context. But if it's got to do 14 of those in a single session, your context usage is going to go up. You're going to use a lot more tokens. It's going to be slower. And in general, you're at a much higher risk of hallucinations. I'm going to have Claude do it anyway, just for demonstration. But it's something to keep in mind. There is a trade-off there between speed of Claude finishing everything up and accuracy and cost. So I'm telling it, hey, that's okay. Let's confirm the 13 were used properly. And then again, I'm reminding it that the Arnold case was already checked, so we don't need to do that one. Go ahead and submit. And this is probably going to take it a few minutes. It's going to have to read through all of the actual opinions, and then it's going to have to cross-check in the brief. While it's working, I will point out that because you're using Claude Code or Claude Cowork, you have access to all this data as just files and folders on your computer. And especially if you're litigating in a specific jurisdiction or working on cases in a specific niche over and over again, it's pretty nice to have all of the cases saved to your computer, because then Claude doesn't even have to go to CourtListener. It already knows when a case exists or how to apply it. And it's just in general a lot better than having to go and fetch it every single time again. I'll also make a comment about features like Westlaw's head notes, which is where they actually pay people to read through the opinions and then provide summaries at the top. This is really helpful if you're trying to figure out quickly if an opinion is relevant or not. But honestly, with AI, this is completely unnecessary because you can always have Claude or ChatGPT read the opinion and basically generate head notes on the fly. And not only head notes, but more tailored to what it is you're actually doing, because they're going to have the context of what it is you're working on. Okay, and so Claude has been working for a bit over 90 seconds now. This is pretty expected because it's got to read a lot of pages from the brief, and it's got to read a lot of text as well. And you can see here on the bottom right, my context usage has been steadily increasing. I'm currently at about 11%. I would not want to take this over 50%. And frankly, if we can keep it under 30% for this whole task, I'd be a lot more comfortable. And again, this is all about context. The higher this usage window goes up, not only is it going to be more expensive and slower, but it's also going to be a lot dumber. And I hate to keep belaboring this point, but it is just so important to understand if you want to get the most out of these tools. You can also see here that Claude was not just verifying that the cited opinions are being used properly, it can also check that exact quotes match up. It looks like Claude thought that everything checked out, which is really good to see. And again, if you want to have higher accuracy, just start new sessions and do 2 opinions at a time, 3 opinions at a time, or even just 1 at a time. And you can also have Claude tell you to let you know if it's unsure, and that way it can flag the opinions that you should probably double check yourself rather than just relying on Claude. But you can also get the benefits of saving time, because if Claude is really confident, it's probably right and you don't necessarily need to painstakingly review it. Once again, if you're interested in installing this CourtListener skill to your Claude setup, reach out to me via email. We're happy to set it up for free. We developed this at Docket Drafter. We've been doing a lot of legal research ourselves as part of our marketing, sales, and just overall product development. And we really think it's a great workflow with Claude Code. So let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next one.